Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new, welcome to Leisure Gaming. I am Leisure. With Halloween right around the corner, I wanted to present a deck profile that would match the season, especially since everyone loves going dressed as these creatures. I'm talking about vampires. To start the deck profile, we're starting with 3 Vampire Familiar. This is definitely a mandatory 3. If this card is special summoned, you can pay 500 life points, add 1 vampire monster from your deck to your hand, except Vampire Familiar. If this card is in your graveyard, you can send 1 vampire card from your hand or face it to the field to special summon this card, but banish it once it leaves the field. 1 Glow Up Bloom. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, add 1 level 5 or higher zombie monster from your deck to your hand, or if Zombie World is on the field, you can special summon it from the deck instead. Also, in either case, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except zombie monsters. 3 Vampire Retainer, also another mandatory 3. If this card is special summoned, you can pay 500 life points, add 1 vampire spell or trap from your deck to your hand. If this card is in your graveyard, you can send 1 vampire card from your hand or face up field to the graveyard, special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. Next up are 3 Uni Zombies, and you can definitely run this at 2 if you prefer. You can target 1 face-up monster on the field, discard 1 card, and if you do, increase that target's level by 1. You can target 1 face-up monster on the field. Monsters you control cannot attack for the rest of this turn except zombie monsters. Also send 1 zombie monster from your deck to the graveyard, and if you do, increase that target's level by 1. Running 1 Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. When a monster on the field activates its effect, or when a spell or trap that is already face up on the field activate its effect, you can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard, destroy the card on the field. Next are 3 Ash Blossoms. 1 Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion. When a card or effect is activated that includes any of these effects, you can discard this card, negate the activation. Add a card from graveyard to the hand, deck, and or extra deck. Special summon a monster card from the graveyard. Banish a card from the graveyard. Next are 3 Vampire Ghosts, which was recently added to Master Duel, which is the reason why I believe a lot more people are playing the Vampire deck profile. If this card is normal summon, you can send 1 other vampire card from your hand or face up field to the graveyard, add 1 level 4 or higher vampire monster from your deck to your hand, and if you do, send 1 level 2 or lower vampire monster from your deck to the graveyard. During the main phase, which is either your main phase or your opponent's main phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard, pay 500 life points. Immediately after this effect resolves, normal summon 1 vampire monster. 1 Mizuki. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 1 zombie monster in your graveyard and special summon that target. 1 Necro World Banshee. Zombie World in the field zone cannot be destroyed by card effects, also neither player can target it with card effects. You can banish this card from your field or graveyard, activate 1 Zombie World directly from your hand or deck. 1 Shadow Vampire. Cannot be used as material for an XZ summon except the XZ summon of a dark monster. When this card is normal summon, you can special summon 1 dark vampire monster from your hand or deck except Shadow Vampire. But monsters you control cannot attack for the rest of the turn except the special summon monster. Keep that last line in mind, because I have done this plenty of times thinking that I've had game and I can only attack with 1 monster on the field. 1 Vampire Fraulein. When a monster declares an attack, you can special summon this card from your hand in defense position. You can only use the effect of Vampire Fraulein once per turn. Once per battle, if your zombie monster battles an opponent's monster during that damage calculation, you can pay life points a multiple of 100 with a max of 3000. Your battling monster gains that much attack and defense during the damage calculation only. At the end of the battle phase, if this card destroyed any monster or monsters by battle, you can special summon them from the graveyard to your field. 1 Vampire Grace. When a level 5 or higher zombie monster is special summoned to your field by an effect of a zombie monster, while this card is in your graveyard, you can pay 2000 life points, special summon this card from your graveyard. You can only activate the effect once per turn, and then once per turn you can declare 1 card type, monster, spell, or trap. Your opponent sends 1 card of that type from the deck to the graveyard. 1 Vampire Scarlet Scourge. If this card is normal or special summon, you could pay 1000 life points, then target 1 vampire monster in your graveyard, except Scarlet Scourge. and special summon it, but it cannot attack this turn. You can only use the effect of Vampire Scarlet Scourge once per turn. At the end of the battle phase, if this card destroyed a monster by battle, you can special summon them from the graveyard to your field. 1 Jackal Bolin. You can discard 1 zombie monster, special summon this card from your hand during your opponent's main phase. You can target 1 zombie monster in either graveyard, special summon that monster, but banish it when it leaves the field. Then banish this face-up card until the end phase. You can only use this effect once per turn. Next we have our boss monster for the zombies, Doom King Battle Drop. During the standby phase, if a face-up card is in a field zone and this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon this card in defense position. You can only use the effect of Doom King Battle Drop once per turn. Once per chain, when a zombie monster except Doom King Battle Drop activates its effect, you can apply one of these effects. Either negate that effect, or banish 1 monster from the field or graveyard. Next is 1 Vampire Voivode. If this card is normal summon, you can target up to 2 monsters in your opponent's graveyard. Special summon those monsters to your side of the field in defense position, but their effects are negated. When a monster's effect is activated while a monsters with the same name is in the graveyard, you can negate the activation. That stops the opponent's hand traps, because the hand traps like Ash Blossom activate in the graveyard. If a monster or monsters is special summoned from your opponent's graveyard, you can target 2 monsters, special summon this card from your graveyard. You can only use each effect once per turn. I feel like this is a great boss monster for the vampires in my opinion. On to the spell and traps, we have 1 Foolish Burial, send 1 monster from your deck to the graveyard. We have 1 1-for-1, send 1 monster from your hand to the graveyard, special summon 1 level 1 monster from your hand or deck. Next are 2 Vampire Desires. Activate one of these effects, target 1 face-up monster you control, send 1 vampire monster from your deck to the graveyard with a different level from that monster, and if you do, the targeted monster becomes the level of that sent monster in the graveyard. Or, target 1 vampire monster in your graveyard, send 1 monster you control to the graveyard, and if you do, special summon that targeted monster. Next are 2 Zombie Worlds. You can definitely run this at 3. All monsters on the field and in the graveyards become zombie monsters. Neither player can tribute summon monsters except zombie monsters. Next is 1 Vampire Kingdom. Zombie monsters gain 500 attack during damage calculation only. Once per turn, when a card or cards is sent from your opponent's deck to the graveyard, target 1 card on the field. Send 1 Dark Vampire monster from your hand or deck to the graveyard, and if you do, destroy that target. You don't need to run the Vampire Kingdom, you can actually just drop this and make it your 3rd Zombie World. I like having it for the attack boost and for the card destruction. Next are 2 Vampire Domain. Once per turn, you can pay 500 life points. During your main phase this turn, you can normal summon 1 vampire monster in addition to your normal summon. Each time your vampire monsters inflict battle damage to your opponent, gain the same amount of life points. And 1 Call by the Grave. On to the traps, we have 1 Vampire Awakening. Special summon 1 vampire monster from your deck, but destroy it during the end phase of this turn. And 2 Vampire Domination. When a spell or trap or monster effect is activated while you control a vampire monster, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. Then, if it was a monster card, gain life points equal to its original attack. On to the extra deck, we have 1 Formula Synchron. When this card is synchro summoned, you can draw 1 card. Once per chain, during your opponent's main phase, you can immediately, after the effect resolves, synchro summon using this card you control. We have 1 Baron de Fleur, 1 Beatrice Lady of the Eternal. You can also exi summon this card by sending 1 Burning Abyss monster from your hand to the graveyard, then using 1 Dante monster you control as material. If summoned this way, the following effects cannot be activated this turn. Once per turn, you can detach 1 material from this card, send 1 card from your deck to the graveyard. If this card in your possession is destroyed by your opponent's card and sent to your graveyard, you can special summon 1 Burning Abyss monster from your extra deck, ignoring the summoning conditions. Obviously, we're not going to be using any of the Burning Abyss parts of the effect. What we're pretty much using this card for is to either send your Glow Up Bloom, your Necro Banshee to the graveyard so you can activate their effects. 1 Dampire Vampire Sheridan, which is another boss monster for the vampires in my opinion. If you use a monster or monsters with a level that is owned by your opponent, for the XC summon of this card, treat it as a level 6. Once per turn, you can detach 1 material from this card, then target 1 card your opponent controls and send it to the graveyard. Once per turn, if a monster or monsters is sent from the field to the opponent's graveyard by a card effect, or a monster is destroyed by battle and sent to your opponent's graveyard, you can detach one material from this card, special summon one of those monsters to your field in defense position. 1. The Zombie Vampire, which I believe is the last boss monster for the vampires. If you use a monster or monsters with a level that is owned by your opponent for the XD summon of this card, treat it as a level 8. Neither player can target this card with effects of special summon monsters except those special summoned from the graveyard. You can attach one material from this card. Each player sends the top 4 cards from their deck to the graveyard. Then, if any monsters were sent to either graveyard by this effect, you can special summon one of those monsters to your side of the field. We have 1 Link Karibo, 2 Vampire Sucker. If you would tribute a monster or monsters for a tribute summon, you can tribute a zombie monster your opponent controls, even though you do not control them. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. You can target one monster in your opponent's graveyard, special summon it to your opponent's side of the field in defense position, but it becomes a zombie monster. Or if a zombie monster is special summoned from either graveyard, draw a card. 1 Avenged Savior. This card's name becomes Revendread Slayer while on the field. You can target one Vendread card in your graveyard, add it to your hand. During damage calculation, if this card battles an opponent's monster, you can send one zombie monster from your deck to the graveyard. That opponent's monster loses attack equal to the level of the monster sent to the graveyard times 200 until the end of this turn. That second effect is the one you're going to be primarily using for this card. 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Dark the Dark Charmer, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, 1 Vampire Fascinator. If this card is link summoned, you can target one monster in your opponent's graveyard, special summon it to your field in defense position. Also, cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except zombie monsters. You can tribute one vampire monster, then target one monster your opponent controls, take control of it until the end phase. 1 Yugioh, the Absolute Zero Mayakashi. Negate any activated effects of your opponent's banished monsters. If a monster is special summoned from the graveyard, or a monster effect is activated in the graveyard, you can target one other face-up monster on the field, change its attack to 0, and if you do, negate its effects. And 1 Access Code Talker. That is the deck profile for Vampire Zombies. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.